On a personal level, I have to say, not political level. You know, but for me, that was about going beyond the nation state. It was about going that, and that is globalization. The question is, can we globalize our democracy long term, as well as having a more localized democracy? And I have no answers. If you do, please send me postcards, because I would love them. But I can't see us. We can't retreat to the 19th century nation states because we give global companies the power to do things, and we can't simply have the absence of politics be, you know, but we can't simply transform the 19th century state model to a higher plane, and therefore we have to find something new, and you know, we haven't found it yet. There was a late.
Do you think the independence and part privatisation the government's given to schools and hospitals is a step in the right direction?
Do you want to?
Go ahead.
My problem isn't with the independence. It is the fact that what they've done is, rather than give it to local communities to decide, they've created hospitals. I know people who were involved in the creating of foundation hospitals and giving them the idea you have to elect the elected little bodies which would run themselves. But if you take them out of their community, they become hollowed out themselves. I am much more interested in the idea that local people, through a local council, through themselves, can run a hospital, rather than you split off the hospital from the school, the pensioner group from this. You know, that way leads to a fractured politics, and actually, I think that actually misses the whole power dynamic. I don't think that foundation hospitals and things have worked in a democratic sense. I'm not a health expert. Other people can have our opinions of that. But in terms of democratising the health service, I don't think it's worked. I think giving schools more freedom works, but we need to find a democratic way of doing it. And the way in which this government, for that matter, probably the next, is doing it, for me, isn't about empowering communities and people to control the things around them. It kind of parcels them off. So the idea that parents at a school have greater control is good, but the reality is my children aren't going to school at the moment. They're going to go to school next year. In the model which they've done, I don't get a say now, but I may get a say in a year's time. But the person who is now 19 or 20 and hasn't got kids doesn't get a say until... that doesn't work. It has to be collective community ownership. And we have to get back to the idea that actually the community, whatever it is, actually should have resources and do things together. And that means, yes, democracy about it, but not... We don't want to have public institutions, this is a very personal opinion, it's not Unlock Democracy's opinion, we have an organisational opinion. We don't want to have public institutions which mirror private institutions. They need to be public but democratic.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that last formulation. That's very, very good. The privatisation was based on the assumption that the marketisation was the only form of efficiency that works, and that has taken away the idea that there are very efficient and effective non-marketised ways of relating and doing things where appropriate. And you've got to have the confidence as a public body to be able to do that. But I think that this comes back to the point the gentleman who's the volunteer looking after the bookshop asked at the back, which is this thing about being afraid of tidying up. And I think that the eccentricities of the British system, which were rooted in municipal and local government and forms of decentralisation, because they are not protected by a written constitution, by a constitution which is entrenched in people's hearts, are exposed, this is the point I think Peter's been making very effectively, to central government now in a way that they wouldn't be in other countries. So I was just talking today to a colleague who was saying that he and takes his children out onto